So I recently opened an email from a very nice lady named Chloe claiming to be a representative of Jagermeister, asking whether I would be interested in having Nikko Hurtado on the show. I thought, this is an odd scam. To the Fireside. My name is Jake, so happy to have you here with me. I do want to give a special thanks to Chloe and Jagermeister for setting this interview up. I thought it was a scam at first, but it turned out to be real, and we got to sit down with Nikko Hurtado and pick his brain a little bit. I obviously knew Nikko's work. I don't think that we had ever met before. I know we've crossed paths at different shows, but I don't remember ever being formally introduced, so this was kind of my first introduction to Nikko, and I was very impressed with his attitude towards tattooing. He, in my opinion, is a great ambassador of tattooing. He's got a very strong work ethic, obviously a very talented guy, and very, very driven. Very driven to help the tattoo community and to be an ambassador, a representative of tattooers. And we will get into the relationship between Nikko and Jagermeister and why this whole thing came about. They're actually working on a pretty cool project together. We'll get into that at the end of the episode or towards the end of the episode. But for now, let's go ahead and kick it off. I hope you enjoy it, and I'll see you at the end. So I'm super familiar with your work. I've watched you for quite a few years, but I don't know a lot about your background before tattooing. And I don't know, I'm sure you've shared this 100 times before, but just for me, what did you have formal art training beforehand, or what was your early?
No, I didn't even graduate high school, man. I mean, I took some classes at Pasadena Art Center when I was in high school. And, that was awesome. Those were some amazing classes. I took a graphic design, life studies. I took illustration, but they were just for high school kids, and we would do them every Saturday. I did that for a couple years. And then I took 4 years of art in high school. My art teacher in high school was amazing. His name was Mr. Samuels, and he just gave a lot of inspiration, and he really cared. And it was a real amazing experience, with having that teacher. You want to go right now, right? You want to talk about all this stuff now?
Yeah. Well, I think we're already recording, so yeah, we can just keep rolling.
Yeah. So I mean, my high school art teacher was amazing, man, and he just gave me a lot of inspiration and encouragement on art. And that's pretty much the extensiveness of my art background. Kind of had a hard upbringing, so school wasn't that easy. I mean, I don't know how far back you want me to go with whatever.
That's cool. I was mostly curious because you were one of the first, or I guess the first really kind of high level color realism artist that I saw. And of course, I started tattooing back in the mid 90s, 96. And so no, there weren't real specialists, at that point that I knew outside of a handful in the magazines. Of course, Guy and Aaron Kane were doing bio organic kind of stuff. And there were a handful, guys like Bob Renshaw that were doing black and gray realism, but not really on the level of what we're seeing right now. And you were one of the first people that I saw that I was like, oh wow, I don't really know what his order of operations is to even make that happen. Before that, I could see it. I could see where people got to their end result. But you were one of the early people that I was like, man, I don't know how he's doing that. So
being in Southern California, I think I was really inspired by people like Guy, obviously with the magazines and stuff, but I was really inspired by the black and gray fine line stuff and the portraits, so like Jack Rudy, Corey Miller. There was a guy up here in the desert. His name's Big Ed. He's just like the style of tattooing with them, but a little less well known, but amazing artist. And then I think just from looking at magazines, all the color stuff that I'd been seeing, I'd been inspired by Boris, from Hungary, and a lot of these guys, Stepan Shodazeg, Tintin, even Philip Blue. And I'd seen some color stuff people had done. And me and my buddy, we started doing, this guy, Mike DeMossi, that taught me how to tattoo. We started doing some colored portraits, but it kind of fell into our lap. It wasn't we were searching to do that. It was more one of my buddies, I'll tell you, the first time I ever got to do something really realistic was I'd done a couple of portraits. I had been doing a bunch of pinups in color. And one of my buddies wanted a Humphrey Bogart tattoo. And so he had come in, I was going to do it on him for free, just to do it on my buddy, to get some, a portfolio piece. And he brought in an official Batman book from the movie, and he's like, dude, I really want to get this. And it was this Batman portrait, and I'm all, let's do that. And he's like, you think you could do it? And I'm all, yeah, let's do that. So we did it. And I don't know, man, that became one of like my most iconic tattoos. And I ended up doing this whole leg. I did like a Catwoman and all this stuff. And it just kind of happened. And then we started entering them at different shows. And they were like Inkslinger's Ball, and then like Pomona, which was like, it was at the beginning of that show, the Body Art Expos. And yeah, man, I ended up getting awards and people started getting like paying attention. And it just went from there, you know, it kind of spiraled out of there. So it wasn't like we were really looking for anything. Me and him had did it like day to day. Like one day he did it and then the next day I did it. And we just started taking those tattoos around. And then we just started getting people to ask us for those type of tattoos. So that's really kind of how it started for us. I was inspired by Dino Cook as well. And a lot of these guys, Paul Bluth. But I don't really know, man. I think we were just doing what was natural to us. And it just ended up becoming what it became. And yeah, it's cool, man. I mean, I went through a lot of ridicule. I went through a lot of weirdness because, you know, a lot of tattooers, I mean, if you've been tattooing since 96, you know, man, I mean, even to this day, but for the first 10 years of my career, you know, it was like, oh, those tattoos are never going to last or this and that. And you know what? Color tattoos change anyways. I don't care what style it is. Color tattoos are just going to fade. It's just the fact, and it's just the way it is in the sun. And, you know, especially if you have a hard lifestyle, you don't take care of yourself, you're in the sun all the time, they're going to fade. But the guy I've done the Batman tattoos on, I got to say, man, the guy's a really healthy guy. He's never really abused his body. And he, the tattoos still look great. And it's kind of crazy because he has some of the best skin I've ever tattooed in my career. So
that's awesome. It just happened to be one of the first big pieces that you went after. It ended up being a piece where the guy takes care of himself and was easy to tattoo. That's awesome.
Yeah, and the guy's skin was like crazy good, man. Like every time I've tattooed him after, it's just he has some of the best skin I've ever tattooed. It's like you can tell he's a healthy person. You know what I mean? Like it's just crazy.
So along those lines of, I'd like to get a little bit into the process, but from taking that kind of color realism approach early, and then watching those tattoos age and heal in skin. I mean, we know you know that value, you know, dark against light and strong contrast help to hold tattoos together for longevity. What if you had to pull a couple of things that you've learned to make the style of tattoo, the kind of painterly, soft, you know, soft edge, subtle transitions, things like that, to make them hold well for years to come? Have you pinned down a handful of things that work really well?
Yeah, I mean, I think the traditional guys have it right with, you know, the strong black, you know, instead of using black outlines like you're explaining, it's, you know, the contrast, you know, and, you know, you need heavy blacks. And I mean, I think a lot of the small nuances in certain portraits, they're cool to pull off and they're cool tricks. Like if you can pull it off and make it happen, like as far as like small color changes and things like this. But, you know, like it's the same with portraits, man. You want a real hard, like, contrast. You want darks. Like if it's almost black, you want to use black. There's ways to make black look a little richer with like as it comes out of the shadows. But yeah, definitely you need a strong like illustration too. Like you need to be able to draw like hands, nose, lips, eyes, like, and draw them better than the photos look. So there is certain things to make like a portrait tattoo in color like last longer. And it's still to this day, man. I mean, I think I've learned a lot of things and figured out some stuff, but you know, it's still, I've only been tattooing for 22 years. So I'm seeing tattoos that are probably 18 years old, 19 years old, and I'm able to judge them now. And since it wasn't really like, there was people doing it, but I think also a solid tattoo, like wall to wall color, is going to hold up the best for that style of tattooing. Unless you're really, really like disciplined with leaving really open skin and just kind of fading it out to that. Like, but I think the longest lasting is wall to wall color, because even if it fades out, it always has a little hint of it, where if you leave it open skin, a lot of times that transitional color in between isn't as heavy, and that like kind of leaves fast, and the tattoo ends up looking a little bit more black and gray.
Yeah,
you know, so it just depends. I mean, a lot of that stuff is just people's skins too, like, you know, like their lifestyle. You know, if people want to be in the sun all the time, I always tell them, dude, just go black and gray. You know, don't get color, because it's just going to look better for longer. You know, and color, you're just going to kind of beat up, you know.
Yeah.
And to me, it's not worth it, you know. But yeah, I mean, there is like, I think line work, all those things are important. I think a lot of people try to jump hurdles and kind of run before they crawl, because they're trying to make it look realistic. And I'm not saying like there is people out there probably that can make it look a little looser, but tattooing takes a little bit of an illustration look, a little tightness, a little cleanliness. It's not like painting. Painting, you want soft edges. Paintings, you want it to be a little bit looser. It adds a little bit more realism to the eye. But with portraits, you need that like edge, like that, those lines in the eyes, lines in the mouth, a couple of lines like in the nose, like things to hold it together and make it look clean. When it's not drawn well and clean, you can tell.
Yeah, absolutely. You were talking about planning really well in regards to leaving open areas, and I assume that for your style of tattooing, the planning, for one thing, your stencils for guys like you or Steve Butcher, to me, just look like chaos. I can't tell what I'm looking at, but the approach, if you weren't the very first person that I saw taking the approach of rendering, from one area fully all the way up, rather than almost like a laser printer, rather than from back at whenever I started, you would blend line or wash line everything, and then lay in your values, and then lay in your color. When I first saw you doing that, I thought, when I first saw photos or videos or however I experienced it, I was just it gave me like a panic attack, because I was like, well, what's he going to do? That stencil's almost gone. What's he going to do with it? I wasn't thinking about coming back and being able to relay it. But I guess my bigger question, one, I'd like to know where that approach came from, if that's something you guys just kind of came up with on your own, or if you learned it.
I mean, I had never seen anyone really make a stencil like that. I remember when I started tattooing. So when I was in high school, we did these huge portraits on paper, and we had to transfer them from an 8x10. And we had to like do like these squares, like a grid, and then draw it onto the other bigger paper in a bigger grid, went like from 1 inch to like 6 inch or 3 inch or whatever. So I remember drawing that, and we drew all the shapes of like the shadows and everything. And so when I did portraits, the first time I did a portrait, I ended up tracing it like that. And I remember I put the stencil on, and the girl that helped me learn how to tattoo had told me, she was like, oh, you're going to get lost. That's the wrong way to do it. It's too much information in that. And I was just like, dude, this is like the only way I can like understand it in my mind. So I did it that way. And it's funny because I ended up taking Bob Tyrell's seminar after, and he did a very similar way, but it was like little dot lines. Like he would do like little dotted lines in the shadows, and then hard lines where like the edges were. But yeah, man, I mean, I started doing those stencils, and then it worked. And so then everybody in my shop started doing those stencils, or where I worked. And then from there, I don't even know, man, I started getting opportunities to where people were like, hey, do you teach? And I don't know why. I look back upon it and I'm like, man, what balls I had, like, to be like, yeah, I guess I do. You know what I mean? And I just did it. And like, it seems crazy to me now, because I was like 4 years in, and I'm like, yeah, I'll fucking teach whatever. I think it was just such a high volume of people asking that I just was like, oh, I could fit like 30 people in a room, and I can do this. So I started putting things together, and I started giving away all the information. And I think also what kind of gave me that fire was kind of like not being accepted by like traditional tattooing. Like, and I'm not talking about just traditional style. I'm talking about like the very tattooer's tattooer, and like these people being my heroes. I think like hearing like negative stuff about like color realism and like just all this negative about it just kind of pushed me to want to give all the information away. Like I was like, I want everyone to know how to do this. I want it to be like just everybody's killing it at this. And what's crazy is I look now on the internet, man, and there's so many people that are so good at it, and it's all over the world. And I've heard such nice, kind things from people all over the world, from China to Russia to, the India, all over. And it makes me proud, man, because that was my goal, was to give this information away. And, I see people really crushing it and even taking it further. So it's cool, man. It's cool to see it be accepted and it be an actual real style in tattooing. It's pretty cool.
That, yeah, no doubt. You're right. Just to see where, like, how the style has evolved, and, not even just color realism, but how realism has started to go into this like really believable illustrative realism, storytelling kind of realism, where it where you're just like, wow, how do these people even build the reference that it took to build that out? And did you lose
Hey,
some Wi-Fi
sorry,
out there?
dude.
That's all right.
The heat of the like outside,
Oh, yeah,
it was
overheated the
like,
phone.
yeah, because I put the phone there and it was like over temperature and it's all
Yeah. Yeah,
overheated. Like the
it
temperature
shuts
thing
down.
came on. I'm all, what the hell?
Yeah, I've had that happen a few times
Yeah,
before.
sorry about that, man. I
Uh,
apologize. So I just
no,
ran
that's
into.
per that's perfectly fine. That's why I like editing these things into. I despise live streaming shows so much for that very reason, just because we can clip it
Yeah,
out and no one will ever know the difference. It's so much
no,
better.
I understand.
Yeah. So I don't know. We'll kind of pick back up. I don't know what you heard out of what I was saying, but I was just talking about the kind of the evolution of the style that you introduced, and the kind of illustrative realism, storytelling. Really believable scenes with storytelling, and how so many artists now are using like digital tools to create
Oh
really
yeah.
complex
I mean,
compositions, and bathing them with a light source, and
yeah,
all
I
of that.
mean, I think me and Carlos Torres, like, I mean, I'm sure there was other artists that did it, but me, Carlos Torres, Carlos Rojas, and like a lot of the guys I was hanging out with at the time, we started traveling a bunch. Like we were traveling all over the world, and we just took our cameras. We bought good cameras, and we would take reference at museums. And so, from creating pieces like Megan Jean Morris's piece, or like other pieces that I've done, a lot of it was our own reference. Like Megan, when I did her back piece, she modeled for it, and that was that Red Riding Hood back piece. And so, I had her hold the lantern, and we would go buy props. And from traveling, I learned how to use a camera and take better photos. And so I started buying lighting and all this stuff. So I try, if when I can shoot my own reference, I will. Um, but yeah, I mean, I'm inspired by like the old movie poster people like Drew Struzan and stuff like that. So when I design stuff, I try to think of it, how does it aesthetically look, and what's the composition like? And I do pull a lot of inspiration from Drew Struzan, because he's badass at composing images for a poster and making it interesting. So when I'm doing a sleeve, if I'm doing like some movie sleeve, I consider him in my mind, or I will kind of research kind of ideas of how it's put together. And then I also use like Guy Atchison's Reinventing the Tattoo book, and using the flow and how things fit. So yeah, I think that people like Carlos Torres, I think people like Guy Atchison, and then people doing these portraits, we've just kind of put all those tools together. Because you remember, if you've been tattooing since '96, having to buy books. Like I got a bookcase full of books, and you would print it out, and you would just cut everything out, and you'd be putting it like on the person's body, like in real life Photoshop. You know what I mean? Instead of like, taking it into Procreate and just kind of dropping an image on and drawing on a tablet. It's kind of mind blowing, the difference.
Yeah, it really is. And you talked about kind of building a composition, or say doing a comic sleeve. And one of the things that I see in less experienced artists that are trying to get into realism is that kind of like getting so focused on the reference that they neglect the whether it's neglecting the area of the body that they're actually placing it on, or other tattoos around it, or when they're building a composition, you see this kind of like pork chop kind of stuff where it's just nice portrait piece, nice portrait piece, nice portrait. It's all the horror scene stuff that's just stacked up a leg, and they don't acknowledge, one piece doesn't acknowledge the next. And I think that's one of the things that I feel like takes the longest to learn with that, particularly with that style, because they get so dialed in on making it look like the photo or the reference.
Yeah, I think that Procreate, or like Photoshop, or whatever, all these digital apps have really created an opportunity to create a lot of layers. And so I do see a lot of new artists really taking a hold of that, and actually taking it further, like really spending a whole lot of time on design. And but yeah, man, I mean, that's one of the hardest things to do, even to this day for me, with portraits, because let's just say you're doing like a comic sleeve or something, and you have like a bright blue background with like a bright red background, or it's like Beetlejuice and it's like all Tim Burton themed or something like that. It's really hard to like bring the backgrounds together, or find a clever way of making them flow together in a clean way where they look cohesive. And that's where I feel like people like the poster artist Drew Struzan has like mastered things, and yeah, I think that that's a great place to pull inspiration from, because he's done so many movie posters, did like Star Wars posters. You know who he is? Yeah.
And I know the name, but I don't know. How do you spell his last name?
Like like the Goonies, poster, or like Indiana Jones poster, or
okay, I know his work.
The really Dune poster. Like a lot of these posters are like inspired by him or was made by him, you know, and you'll see it like it's like a ET, you know, things like this, like those iconic 80s posters that are like kind of hand painted but look realistic. You know what I'm saying? They have those weird like glowing parts, and like he did like Blade Runner, things like that. You know what I mean? So I really try to pull inspiration from things like that because they were so well put together, and the flow of the designs was amazing. And so it's perfect for like a sleeve or a leg or something like that.
But before we get, there was one point I wanted to, or one thing I wanted to ask, and before we get too far away from the actual technical part of tattooing and layout and design, we were talking about the kind of the process that you came up with that I find out comes from the kind of gridding exercises where you're working, kind of rendering on the way up. And one thing that I always think about it when we're teaching here at Fireside is working kind of general to specific. And so a thing that I've always struggled with when I see people with that approach is like, I don't know the exact value or temperature of, say, like a light on a cheek before I've addressed some piece of the forehead, right? Because nothing is right or wrong until I have something to compare it to. It's either darker or lighter than this, or warmer or cooler than that. So when you're rendering in that way, if you haven't addressed, say, like, you know, the cheeks or the recesses of the eyes, and you don't have that comparison point, what is are you just so planned out on the front end?
Well, in the beginning, I didn't know what I was doing. You know what I'm saying? Like to be honest with you, I was just trying to do what I see. And I always went back to that. And honestly, using different companies like colors, like Intense or Eternal, and then Fusion, you know, they all reacted differently with each other on how like the pigments, you know, mixed. And so it was hard to find temperatures. And I really didn't know that much about color. I knew what I was looking at and how to make it, but it was like intuitive. And so from that process, I started taking classes. I mean, I was able to hang out with Michael Husser a lot and paint at his place a lot. And from that point, we used to paint every Sunday and Monday. And that's where Jagermeister comes to a huge play, because we would paint from like, you know, maybe 11 o'clock at night to like 5 o'clock in the morning. And, you know, it was from life. And so I started learning a lot about temperature, a lot about light source, a lot about what constructs a good quality image for a portrait. And from that, I brought a lot of information from the mud palette back into like, you know, tattooing. And so I started creating my tattoo palette like that. And then that's when everything kind of started hitting, where it was like, oh, the light source is like, it doesn't matter like whether light source is here, 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 or here, like somewhere's going to have the hottest spot. And so you have to recognize where the light source is, where the darkest darks are, where the brightest parts are, where the warmest parts are, like temperature wise, to make something look alive. And then I started doing these things where, from doing so many portraits from life, I started understanding like, okay, well, alizarin crimson or this red would make, you know, things look alive and give it a like almost like blood flow and temperature for life, 98.6 degrees, you know? So I started implementing this stuff in photos, because I noticed in photos, you couldn't see these things. So from painting from life so much, I brought that information that I recognized from life into like these photos. And I think that really what started changing my style and what kind of separates me from other people, you know, as far as like a real just straight portrait, is the small nuances and color tones and changes in temperature in the skin. I really enjoy. It's one of my favorite things. Making something give life, like almost like more character than even being perfect on the rendering. To me, the perfect rendering isn't nearly as important as bone structure, temperature, and life and expression. So those are things I try to focus on now more than anything. I feel like people get lost in rendering so much they forget about the fundamentals of things. So, but it really came from drawing outside of tattooing, man. You know, I can see behind you, you have a lot of portraits back there and stuff. And those are the things that make you better. Those are the things that really teach you like atmosphere and distance and, you know, highlights. And, you know, highlights are a really important aspect of any art, you know, and when you really start getting down to things, and, you know, every highlight has a different color. And yeah, dude, it's an ongoing road, and I really enjoy learning, and it's fun, man. I don't feel like I know really anything. I look at painters and museums, and that's where I find most of my inspiration. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
just
same.
the artwork.
Yeah.
Caravaggio right there, right behind you. You know, it's one of my favorite painters.
Yeah, that's a kind of a master study I've been working on slowly, that I've been trying to incorporate like little like quirky elements to classical painting. So this is like
That's
so this Jesus has like a godson rocker, like stomach
That's
tattoo,
awesome.
and Thomas is like checking it out rather than
Yeah,
checking
that's
out his
cool.
wound, so trying to
That's
play with
fucking
like fun
badass, dude.
ideas.
That's cool. Who did you
Thanks,
learn
man.
from? Sean Sheatham go up there a lot, or?
No, I went to Memphis College of Art, and really no one in the tattoo world that is known. I was kind of born and raised here. I was a painting major, in the late '90s, and at Memphis College of Art, and then and tattooing at the same time. And I just came up kind of the same way a lot of people did in that time, through street shops, kind of rougher,
Yeah.
biker shops, and landed at a decent shop in the early 2000s, and the rest is kind of just kind of and like. I'm one of those people, I think, that was very mediocre for the majority of my career. And it wasn't until I started seeing people like you, and then obviously with the advent of social media and all of that, and seeing what younger tattooers were doing, that it made me like make a real effort to step up what what I was doing. And of course, interviewing people, doing this show for the last decade, and interviewing people like you and Guy or Baxter, whoever, Paul Booth, that I feel I've felt a much more urgency to make sure that I'm not just that I have something to contribute, you know what I mean? And in addition to just asking questions. So I think that's
I mean, really, like Guy and Paul and all those people, they really opened the door to like what stuff that I was trying to do. I think I took seminars from Guy, and I've been to Paul's shop and stuff. And like, just seeing how much they loved art and how they were trying to bring art into tattooing. I mean, I feel like they're due the most credit, because I always say it, man. Like, I love tattooing, right? Like, I love traditional tattooing probably more now than I've ever loved it. Like, I just love the way it looks, But when I started tattooing, that wasn't what set my heart on fire. Like, I think I love the way it looked, but I just like the idea. Like, I gravitated more towards like Jack Rudy, the fine line style black and gray, and Robert Hernandez and people like this. So without people like Robert and Guy and all those people, I don't really think I would have found love with tattooing as much as I did, because it was, they loved art, dude. They just wanted to make, they painted and they made art, and they made that the biggest aspect of tattooing. And then they brought it into tattooing. And that's what I wanted to do, man. I just wanted to take it a step further and, do my own thing with it. And I don't know, from the inside looking out, I mean, I'm just trying to add my part like you are, and I love tattooing so much that, and it's changed my life, man. It saved my life. Like, everyone around me, lives pretty normal, average life, which is great. But tattooing has really made my life really unique. And I really owe it everything, because it's consistently given me and fed me, and honestly given people around me. It's given so much to people outside of just that don't even tattoo, like, photographers, or, my brother that's a painter that paints a lot. And, it just, my cousin works for my ink company that I do, and he runs that. And it's like, I see the opportunity of like it changing so many people's lives, including my own. And I'm really indebted to it. So I want to be the best representative I can be for the tattoo community, because I think it's really important and it's really needed, because I think sometimes we're taken as a joke, and we're made kind of like a little cartoony funny. And it's like, dude, we're real serious artists, and we dedicate our whole life to this. And I think it's really important to be a good representation of tattooing.
Yeah, no, that's well said. Yeah, I completely agree. And I'm glad you brought that topic up, because I am curious. So you've reached a level of like legitimate celebrity from tattooing. Like, millions of people know who you are. I would have never in my wildest dreams guessed that any tattooer, the best tattooer, the most famous tattooer in the world, would have like a level of celebrity with the general population. It never occurred to me that would be a thing. And so what I wonder, a couple of things. First off is how just how you feel about how your lifestyle, how your life has changed through TV and social media and all that type of thing, and then also the way that your time probably is divided now. I had a similar conversation with Derb Morrison for a different reason, but Derb Morrison was a well-known tattooer through the 90s, and of course started doing the Hell City stuff.
Yeah, he's a friend of mine. Derb's awesome.
Yeah, so but he completely got like, he quit. He loved tattooing, and then he basically had to quit tattooing because all the other demands of his life kind of required that. I shouldn't say required it. It's a choice that he made. But I wonder about your thoughts on both of those things.
I think it's all a means to an end. You know what I mean? I think that balance is key. I do tattoo. I tattooed yesterday. I tattooed 7 hours yesterday, and the day before I tattooed 8 hours. And then. But I'm only going to tattoo twice this week. I have Golden State Tattoo Expo this weekend, and I won't tattoo all week until next week. And it becomes really difficult because I love tattooing. I don't paint as often as I used to. It's usually like if I have a project I got to get done, then I would rather do it in oil paint because I just enjoy, it's an excuse to make art and really get into that zone. But the balance is really off right now. I'm really like stretched thin with a lot of different things, which is amazing. I think it's amazing. And I'm enjoying the ride. Like I'm just going for it. And right now I feel like, so for me with painting and tattooing will always be there. So tattooing will always be number one. That's always number one because that's the mechanism that's driven everything. So to me, that's the most important thing I do. And so if I personally don't think I'll ever stop tattooing as long as I'm capable of it. I really enjoy it. But, I would like to paint more. I think that's one of the things that falls through the cracks is making artwork and really just making stuff that I believe in. I have this need to kind of change what I'm doing. I can feel it inside. I think portraits. So I'll kind of explain how I see artwork and painting and stuff like that. I never really understood like modern art or contemporary art. But as I get older, I start to understand it more. And I start to understand that images create emotion. So like an image, if you paint an image of something, whether it's a skull, a woman or whatever, it creates some kind of feeling, that whether the eyes are rendered well or not rendered and they feel like they're moving and they're ghosty, they always make you feel it something. You paint a dog, it makes you feel something, maybe something that you remember familiar. But then if you take that dog and you make it all one color or make the hue of the whole painting a different color, it gives you another emotion. So there's an image and then there's the temperature that creates your emotion that's like controlling you. That controls what you're trying to tell the viewer to do. Then there's another level, in my opinion, where you ditch image altogether. You completely get rid of the image because the image kind of becomes a crutch and it kind of becomes like your safeguard because no matter what, a skull is going to make someone feel some way, even if it's a bad rendered skull or it's just not a well drawn or colored skull, it's just going to do something. So in my mind, my goal is to control color and control people's emotions just with shapes and images, just to see what I can do and see. To me, that's the ultimate, that's a mastering of color, is to create emotion from someone looking at something that has no image, maybe not the right shapes of something you could recognize, but makes you feel what the artist is trying to make you feel. So I think about this constantly. It's something I've thought for a very, very long time, and so I haven't implemented it in my artwork or what I'm doing, but definitely been working on that in my head for, 10 years.
Yeah.
And so it's coming close.
Yeah. Along those lines are related to that. I do a seminar at shows. I've been doing it for 3 or 4 years now, called Find Your Style, and it's kind of a generic name, but the idea is that we're thinking more about less about tattoo categories. We start by separating your personal mark making, the things that you're looking for, like you just described, and first off establishing that everyone does have kind of a unique mark, a way to make a mark, and our job is to kind of hone that, but then separating that from tattoo categories. So when people are saying, what style do you work in, they want to know, do you do new school, do you do neo-trad or whatever else, but really this is trying to buck that, or to change that mindset. And so what I do, and I hope you don't mind, but I use one of your images in my seminar. I go through and I grab well-known artists in different styles. And so I might grab Guy and Ty McEwen, or I might grab
Yeah.
Timmy B and Jesse Smith and put
Oh,
those
yeah.
pieces together. And then the one that I've used recently is a piece of yours and a piece of Steve Butcher's. And so I say, like, let's look at these pieces, and we can say these are both color realism pieces,
Yeah.
but let's think about how they're using shape, how they're using value, how they're using edge, how they're using color, and what makes those two people. Because you can look at using you two guys as an example, I could tell the difference in your work from 30 feet away, even though you're working in the same category. And so I wonder, when it comes to tattooing, do you feel like that is something, because of the limitation of the medium, do you feel like that is something that is that's difficult to get to describe, like to get your mark making
a uniqueness in your work? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think that everybody's mind works differently. I think like everyone finds things that are important to them. One thing I try to get away from more than anything, and this is kind of probably contradicting to what my experience has been, but one thing I've learned is, like, if you're talented, man, and you know what you're looking at and you kind of have some fundamentals, it's really important to continue that road and not ask too many questions of too many people. Because a lot of times what happens is your work ends up looking like someone else's work in some way or another, especially if you're learning from someone, because you're basically taking their choices and regurgitating them in your work. So I think it's important to kind of trust your gut. If you know what you're looking at, you kind of have an idea, and to keep making, like, you have to be smart enough to make your mistakes and then kind of answer your own questions of why you don't like it or what could have been better. And I think that trusting your gut and trusting yourself is one of the most important things, I think, to teach artists, because it is good to find inspiration, like just say it's Steve or myself, and to look at our stuff and to learn from somebody, like we learn from somebody. But at a certain point, you got to kind of spread your wings and fly and start experimenting and kind of taking risks in order to find yourself. And it's about lighting your soul on fire, right? Like, I'll give you a perfect example. Like Jeff Gogwe, the reason we met one time was he dismissed me and was like, "Oh, you're one of those color portrait guys." And I was like, "Oh, wait. What does this mean?" We were having a drink at a bar, and it was at Motor City Tattoo Convention, like maybe 18 years ago or maybe 16 years ago. And he kind of insulted me. And so his whole thing was like, "Oh, I create this. I'm a creator." And my thing is, I'm a recreator. You know what I mean? Like, and we have totally two different aspects and ideas on how we see art and tattooing. His idea is he just wants to make a great, solid tattoo. And I love that. Like, I see nothing wrong with that. And I don't think either side's wrong or right. But I just want to make people forget for a second, sometimes it is a tattoo. Like, that was my goal. So it's really hard, because what sets your soul on fire, even if we do a similar style, is going to be different than what sets my soul on fire. And I think that that's what makes, like, Banksy amazing, or Van Gogh amazing, or Caravaggio amazing, is something lit these people's souls on fire to the point where they were so obsessed with what they were doing and they were so in love with it that it showed and it lives forever. And I think that that's what artists need to do. I mean, if you fucking want to get weird and start doing some weirdo shit and that just lights you on fire, that's going to bring people to you. That's going to make those people that enjoy that are going to find you. And that's the greatest part about the internet, is you can make any style yours. And if it's true to your heart and it's not faking the funk, you're going to be successful. And I think that that's the most important thing. I think that that's what I love about Steve's work, and that's what I love about, let's just say Valentina, like Val Tattoo. Her stuff's way more painterly, dude, and it's way loose, but I love it. And then there's people that do even crazier stuff, that it's way different, that like Steve has all those little circles and all the little details, and he loves the texture of the skin, and I love that, and I just think that you got to just do what's true to your nature.
Yeah,
what's in your heart.
Yeah, that's really well said. Great advice. And I know we're up on the hour. I know we're running low on time. Do you want to hit on what the project is, what you guys are doing, what you're doing with Jagermeister? Because I'm super excited and honored that you came on. But Chloe had reached out to me and said, "Hey, Nikko's doing kind of a video or doing a series.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
what is this going on?
So Jagermeister is an amazing company, man. I got to work with them, and I did a mask with them a while ago, maybe 4 years ago, and I've worked with them since. And they're really they're probably one of my favorite companies I've worked with, just because they are such a small team, and you can just tell how much they love what they do in the company they work for. And we're doing this project where we're showcasing, parts of LA and kind of how I recharge and where I go, and also shedding light on my buddy's, charity. I tattooed this guy. His name's Polly's. Well, this charity's called Polly's Project, and his son was born autistic and blind. And this guy, every other Sunday, he goes out to Skid Row. And there's a lot of homeless here in Los Angeles, and it's like kind of a zombie land, and it's like the forgotten land. And we were able to go and give back and give some charity and showcase this guy's projects. And he's been doing it for 10 years. And I mean, it's dangerous down there, bro. It's scary, like even when I went, and I talk to this guy all the time, I always try to donate or help out. But when I went, he was like, if anything goes wrong or you get any weird feeling, we just leave everything in bounds, because it's really that dangerous. It's some of the most dangerous parts. And you can look it up. It's like Skid Row is one of the most dangerous areas in the country, and it's sad. It's zombie land. These people are on drugs, and, there's kids out there, and there's different, families, and there are different reasons why they're out there. And then there's also the drug dealers and the gangsters that are out there that are kind of controlling areas. And it's really sad, man. It's really sad to see, some good people. And I'm sure most of them all started off as good people. I mean, they're people's kids, those people were loved and taken care of. So to go help out and shed some light on my buddy's, projects and what he's doing, and, try to raise
the charity specifically, its aim is to focus on Skid Row and on the drug
on homeless, in Los Angeles.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So it's focused on that, and man, it's kind of crazy, like going down there and talking to the people and seeing their life and what they're living in and how hot it's been, and just even hearing their stories of how they ended up there and how long they've been there. It's kind of crazy, man. It's really sad. They went from one bad situation to a worse situation, and, there's no real systems to help them get out of it. And a lot of it's mental health, especially if they're doing drugs. And it's, it felt really good to give back, man, and help out, so I think it's really cool to shed the light on things like this, because this guy, he takes time out of his life every 2 weeks for a full 8-hour day of work to dedicate his life to helping these people. And it was from his son inspired it, dealing with an autistic son, and also blind. It's been a really challenge for him. So for him to really do something like this is really powerful. So it's awesome that Jagermeister gave me the opportunity to shed light on this. And then also show Los Angeles, man, show some places that, like the beach, water, man. I love water. It recharges me and makes me feel alive. And it's one of my favorite things to do, is anything near water, man. I don't care if it's a lake, a pool, the ocean, and send them right there. So it's awesome.
Absolutely. Well, we're happy to share any links, anything that can that we can help get the word out for your friend's charity or whatever, however we can help promote Jagermeister's the series that you guys are doing, man. I really appreciate you taking the time. I know
Jager's awesome, and honestly, they're a great company, and what they do and how they, like, during the pandemic, we did some PPP stuff, and with the PPE, the personal protective equipment. And so we gave back. We gave $10,000 to getting people, getting the nurses and doctors their protective gear. And it's cool to do stuff like this with Jaeger. I think it's awesome too. They're awesome company.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, cool, man. Nikko, thanks. Great to meet you finally. And I'm excited to get this out to our audience. And
send me a message, man. I want to check your stuff out. The paintings behind you are awesome. And
thanks, man. Yeah.
More of your artwork. It'd be badass, man. Very nice meeting you.
Yeah. Great to meet you too. I definitely will do that. Thanks a lot. And thank you, brother. Thank you, Chloe. All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much.
All right, that's it. Thanks so much to Nikko for taking the time to sit down and chat with me for a while. I had a good time getting to know him. Thanks also to Chloe and to Jagermeister for reaching out and setting this interview up. I will link to the project that Nikko discussed in the video description below. Thank you, as always, for supporting what we do, and I will catch you in the next episode.